So there was Fund Zero, my $15 million fund, then Fund One, 75, and we had no anchor in the $75 million fund.
How did you go about that, man? Was it friends and family first? Was it institutions first?
So our first close was mainly friends, like people who knew us in the fintech ecosystem who were willing to back us just because they'd seen us in the ecosystem. And then we had one institution, who was Sandana.
What does that get you to? Like the friends and family still there?
Yeah. So it got us to 18 million.
18 million.
And it's no family. Families have no money.
Give you $10. Mine gave me an invoice, but
yeah, exactly.
You called me as $28.
Yeah, exactly.
So they took you to 18. That's good.
It was good,
but it's not near enough. 75.
Not near enough. So, but we hit Sandana in the first close, which was wonderful.
Okay.
And then
do they help a lot having an institution like them? Or?
I think it gave some credibility.
Yep.
I think like also just having a first close gave a lot of credibility. Like, and we'd done our first investment. So like we were investing, and we'd had a first close.
How big did you do for the first close?
18.
Oh, you did 18. That is a really early first close.
It's an early first close. Now, part of the reason we did the first close is we had a company that we had to invest in. We had committed to this company in like September. We said, we're going to lead your seed round. But we actually didn't have a fund at that point. And so we had to close as soon as possible so we could fund that company. And I think you, it's the company was Unit, a banking as a service company.
Itai.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fuck, you did that?
Yeah, and it was amazing because that company has been super successful. Like they're, I think the winner in this banking as a service space.
Dude, can you imagine not having done that?
I know.
Oh, God, that is such a good company. I really like Itai.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so you closed on 17, 18 there. Was that right in hindsight? Like, would you advise managers just close as soon
as possible? Like then LPs can take you seriously because you have a fund and you're investing.
But true, but then like how much was that first check into Unit? Because like if you close on 10 and you want to do 75, if you committed to lead a seed round with 1 or 1.5, you're putting 15% of what you've raised out the door in the first go.
Yeah. No, I think we did a first call of like 10%.
Yeah.
Which is a lot, but it was also fine. And then once you do a first capital call of 10%, we were able to get a line of credit. So then you can take more on the line of credit.
Totally get you. Okay, so you do the first close on 17, 18.
Yeah.
What happens then?
So then we were feeling pretty good. It was December of 2019. Yeah. And so we're like, all right, we're gonna do a second close. We decided March of 2020.
Okay.
So we went out and we felt like we had a bunch of folks committed. We did one road trip. We went out to the East Coast from San Francisco. Jake and I went out, and this was like the second week of March 2020. And so when we flew out there, things were fine. And then like all of a sudden, everyone canceled all the meetings. COVID started. The NBA shut down. Like everything happened. And it was basically a totally wasted trip. And we came back on a completely empty flight. Like there were 10 people on a flight that would hold 200 people. So it was a totally wild time. And this close that we were supposed to do in March, everyone who had already committed, including people who had signed, backed out. So we were like, shit, we don't have a fund. Or we don't have the fund that we wanted. So we sent
pissed off?
No, you can totally understand why. Like the world is melting. The world is falling apart. The stock market is going strictly downwards. Like people, I don't mind that people were like, I can't invest in your fund. I don't know how much money I have. I don't know what's going on in the world. Totally get it.
So what do you do then? You get back and you're like, shit.
Like shit. So we're like, okay, at that point we were shooting for a $60 million fund. We said, you know what? We sent a letter to LPs saying, you know what? We're going to go for like 30 to 40. And we said all these things that in hindsight were wrong, which is we thought valuations were going to come down, which, at the time it seemed like that was going to happen. Of course, actually the opposite happened. And so we said we're going to do a smaller fund. And then what happened was May, interest rates go down, money printer goes brr, and everyone came back. And even folks that had said no to us came back and said, hey, actually, like we were looking at the managers that we spoke to. We'd like to talk to you again. And several of the folks that said no to us actually came back and came into the fund. And we ended up with a pretty institutional fund.
Did it get easier? Everyone's always like, oh, when you get to halfway, you know, people really get around the table.
It did get easier.
It did. At what
And so
point
our
was it?
target was 60. We ended up going to 75. And even at the 75, we had to push people down from what they wanted to invest.
When did it get easier? Was there a tipping point?
I think it was when we were like over half.
Yeah.
And we got a few of these institutions in.
Do you find names helped?
I think names probably helped some of them.
Yeah.
And we have I think several of like very good fund of funds that are invested in us, and we have like a university endowment and others, and I think all of that helps.
What was the single best LP meeting?
So I would say for Fund 2, now Fund 2 we raised in December 2021. The whole process only took a month. For Fund 2, we had a bunch of folks who knew us by reputation already. They'd seen our portfolio. They'd talked to other managers about us. They knew companies in our portfolio well, like they tried to invest in them or whatever. And so there were folks who were literally just checking the box by talking to us. And in a 20-minute meeting, they were willing to commit large sums of money. So like double-digit millions because they knew us. Like and I get where they're coming from. Like they know us by reputation. They've spoken to other managers who sit on boards with us or whatever. Like what more do you need? You know the portfolio. It's on our website.
100%. Was there one meeting though where you were like, that was a great meeting?
I think I've had great meetings with like other folks who also invest. So there are funds that have a fund of fund strategy and a direct strategy,
Yeah.
and some of those folks just like knew our portfolio so well, and they were able to speak to our portfolio. And I was like, man, these guys have done their homework.
But I think, like, you know, when I think about mine, like, I think Beezer at Sapphire.
Oh, she's awesome.
But when you think about someone who truly gets the intricacies of our business to a very granular level, and it's not high level, talk to me about how you think about Fintech, like my shit questions. But, like, you know, it's really in depth, and she lives and breathes your business. Like, she would be one for me. I met her years before I did even 20 VC funds. But, like, was there one that really stood out?
No, I mean, so she's an LP in our fund as well. And it was clear, like, so we'd met her for Fund 1. I think it wasn't a fit for her then. And then it was clear by Fund 2, like, we invited her to our LP meeting, and her team came, and it was clear they were super interested. And, like, they had a few questions, but they knew us.
Yeah.
And I think for some folks, it just takes time. And I think part of what we talked about was it got easier as time went on and as we'd closed half the fund. But part of it is also just literally time. Like, they met us, and then it took 6 months of getting to know us, and, like, they'd heard about us from their other managers and other LPs. Like, the LPs have a network where they talk all the time, going to the same conferences, et cetera.
How did you instill a sense of urgency in the fundraise, where it was a case of really committing to a closed date and getting LPs to move in unison?
Yeah. So in Fund 1, we tried to do it, and frankly, it didn't work.
It's hard.
Yeah. It was really
you
hard.
also, you know, it's really hard because you don't want to force them to a no,
Yeah.
by hey, next week. But you also don't want to say a month where it looks like you've got too much time and then they don't move to it.
Yeah. So there's no easy way. I think you give them a date, and then odds are they're going to be like, okay, like, I know that date doesn't matter because if I want to invest, I'm going to be able to invest. And so that's what happened in Fund 1. It took a while. So it took us about a year from start to finish. And Fund 2 was very different because there really was, like, much more demand for our fund than we had space. So it really was, we told our LPs, our existing LPs, Fund 1 LPs, commit to us by this date. And all of them came back and committed by that date. And we were actually kind of surprised because...
By them sizing up.
Yeah. We didn't know that was going to happen. And it actually caught us by surprise and kind of, like, screwed us up a little bit in some ways.
How so?
We had intended on running a process and we'd spoken to a bunch of LPs and actually told these LPs, like, you have plenty of time. Like, and, you know, for some LPs, like university endowments, it just takes time. It takes a few months. Like, they have a different IC process. And we told them, like, yeah, we're meeting now, but don't worry, we're going to raise in Q1. And, you know, you can commit to us by March. And then what ended up happening was we closed everything in December. And we did it all pretty quickly. I think part of it was, you know, frankly, December 2021 was a good time to raise a fund.
Yep.
And so we ended up closing pretty quickly. And some of these folks that we actually would really like to have in our fund, some like university endowments that we have a great relationship with, and we just we told them that they had more time than they did. So that didn't really work out.
How would you advise managers on capital concentration on a per LP basis?
So all of our LPs are 10% or less of our fund. And it makes us feel good now in a market where if any one LP doesn't come into our next fund because, circumstances changed, it's fine for us. We have other folks who want to fill those gaps.
Totally with you there. In terms of
Now, that being said, if somebody had come in and said, I want to do 40% of your fund, then, in fund one, I probably would have said yes. We needed the capital. In fund two, we could be more choosy, and we actually pushed folks down to the 10%. So some folks had wanted to do larger checks, and we pushed them down.
Do you have an LPAC?
We do, yeah.
Who's on the LPAC?
We have five of our biggest investors. They're one family office, and then the others are fund of funds.